So my name is Adam Kobos. I actually went to OES, so I'm an alum. I graduated in '91, and my daughters Ava and JoJo are at OES now. I'm glad to have the chance to speak to you all today. And please feel free to ask questions as I go. But I think Grant, you said there'll be time for questions at the end if people have them as well.
Correct.
Cool. Okay. So I'm a lawyer. I've been practicing for about 20 years. I'm a tax lawyer, which is kind of an unusual type of lawyer. It's not litigation. So I don't, some tax lawyers do litigation, but I don't appear in court. I'm not sure I've ever actually appeared in court. Um, I'm what they call a transactional lawyer. And so I advise people in connection with transactions or projects or things that they're working on in their business lives. And what I focused on for about the past 10 years are energy transactions. Um, so if you think about what's going on in our electricity world today, right, as the population grows, people need more power plants, electricity production to service, all, all of our interconnected world. But we're closing coal plants and other high polluting plants and putting on the grid now projects like solar projects and wind projects that are clean, green production plants. And so what I work on is the financing of solar and wind projects. So tax is already kind of a narrow, unusual field. This area that I work in is very, very, very narrow. And as I'll describe later, I kind of fell into it by accident. The reason why tax is an important part of these transactions is about half the cost of these power plants is subsidized through our tax code. So there are tax credits and other tax incentives available. And so to make solar and wind energy work, you kind of need these tax benefits to make the overall projects, the overall cost of energy that they produce economical. So why do tax lawyers get involved? It's sort of a quirk in the way that this all works. Tax benefits work only if you have taxable income to offset them. And these power plants are huge, they're hundreds of millions of dollars. And because you can only use them if you've got taxable income, and because the people who are really good at building power plants and operating them sometimes don't have lots of taxable income, they need to bring a partner into the deal, like a bank, somebody who makes huge amounts of money year over year, and then kind of use creative tax structures to get the tax benefits to the banks who can use them, and kind of keep the benefits of owning and operating a power project with the people who really want to build them. So it's an unusual practice. There are a couple ways to describe what I do during the day. I am constantly on email. I'll write memos and opinions from time to time, but email is probably the preferred mode of written communication. I'll do research and analysis. So tax law is something where research is really important. And then just like sitting down, drawing pictures and thinking through a problem. So one of the first tax partners that I worked with insisted the first time we start thinking through anything is we take out a piece of paper and draw pictures of the conceptual structures that we're working on as a way to, help think through the problems. And then, the thing that I probably do most every day is talk. I am an introvert by nature, and I ended up in a practice and profession where I end up talking, I don't know, half my hours of the day. It's a weirdly social practice. So I'll be talking to other tax lawyers at other firms or tax lawyers in my office. But because these transactions are so complicated, so I work on one piece of them, but if you're going to build a solar project somewhere, you need people who understand permitting processes and people who go out and lease the land that the project will be on. And you need people to find out like where you can buy solar modules and ship them to the US. and you need somebody to build it, and you need somebody to give you the money. And there's just a huge amount of people involved in like getting one of these projects over the line. So there's just a lot of talking, and problems always come up. So you convene these large groups on the phone and figure it out. So, for that reason, I'm on the phone constantly with people in my firm, people outside my firm, my clients, and then the other parties who are involved in the transactions that we work on. Strangely to me, it's maybe the most enjoyable part of what I do, but certainly not at all what I expected. And then if I had to describe tax law and in particular the kind of stuff that I do, it is like a series of puzzles every day. So intellectually, it's if and I've always liked logic puzzles. If that's if that's something that you're interested in, then you would have found a great thing to do. It's very intellectually stimulating and kind of keeps me thinking all the time. The law, I can speak a little bit about law generally too, because it's something people find their way to. There's a huge variety of things that you can do in the practice of law, just in terms of topics, right? So there's obviously, there's litigation. You could be a criminal lawyer or a prosecutor. You could do civil litigation, so represent people in various contract disputes. You can do intellectual property law, kind of work in tech industries with intellectual property issues. You could be a business lawyer and help people start and build and sell businesses. You could be a family lawyer. I mean, there's sort of huge amounts of practices, each of which is, very, very different from the others. There's also, in terms of where you work, you could be at a small firm, you could be at a big firm, you could be an academic, you could be at a social justice, environmental organization, you could go into government. There are all sorts of different paths you can take. And people from my law school have taken very, very different paths over the years. So in a sense, if somebody chooses to go into law, they've made a choice to do something, but not a very narrowing choice. There are lots of things that can come out of that. But I'm at a big law firm doing a practice where I'm working across the United States, and there are good things and bad things that come with being at a big firm. The good things are the pay is very good, and the work is really interesting. You can do lots of really, really interesting stuff there and work with really, really interesting people. The bad things are it's very, very long hours, and you're on call. Like people, I'm sometimes envious of doctors. People, if you're a doctor, you're on call for a limited amount of time. You do have to go in maybe to the hospital, but if you're a lawyer, you're on perpetual call. People can get you at all hours of the day, and you can answer their questions at all hours of the day. So, the hours extend, and it's stressful. It's stressful both in terms of like the demands of clients and sort of, try not to disappoint people constantly during the day. And then it's stressful inside the firm itself. It's a very, very sort of a large place, and especially when you're starting out with your practice, it can be uncertain trying to figure out your path forward. But for me, on the whole, the pros have outweighed the cons. I've really enjoyed doing what I'm doing, and I'm glad to be here now. But I had no idea that I would end up doing now what I am doing. So, the only thing I remember like wanting to be when I was a kid was an architect when I was 12. And someplace along the way that left. When I got to college, I studied philosophy, and there was sort of maybe a natural jump to go from philosophy to law. I almost did that out of college. I almost went straight to law school, but I actually studied philosophy for a couple of years in graduate school before I decided that was a little too weird. And then worked for a couple of years as a paralegal because I thought I might want to go to law school. And during that time, when I was trying to figure out like what to do, what kind of a lawyer would I be? Did I really want to go to law school? I called people. I kind of did what you guys are doing actually, but I call people at my college who had become lawyers. I just went to the alumni office, and there's a long list of people who said they'd be willing to talk to alumni, so or to students. And so I called a bunch of lawyers and just found out what they did. And it's hard to imagine yourself doing what they're describing, but you talk to enough people about what they do. And this is one of the cool things about what you guys are doing. You kind of get a sense maybe for something that might be good for you. And I happened to talk to two tax lawyers who had gone to my college, and I just liked how they thought and how they described their practice. They seemed a little weird, a little nerdy in a good way, and they seem to have well-adjusted lives. And so that kind of planted a seed. Maybe when I get to law school, I'll check out tax. When I got to law school, I took a tax class with a professor that I absolutely loved. He was amazing, and I was pretty sure at that point that I wanted to be a tax lawyer. And then during your summers in law school, you get to go intern at various law firms. If you're lucky, if you can find a job. And I did that, and did tax law. And once I got there and started doing it, I was hooked. So I found tax law in a sense through a natural way by interning. But I think the reason that I looked at it at the beginning was kind of an accident based on talking to people. And there's no way, nobody grows up wanting to be a tax lawyer. So that's how I found my way to that. But when I started practicing, I didn't do anything like the stuff that I'm doing now. And, I found it kind of by accident about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, during, there was a big recession, and the kinds of work that I was doing sort of dried up for a while. And I was a young partner and kind of needed to fend for myself and find things to do. And the only thing that was going on at the time was this energy work. And it was kind of new and people were figuring it out. And so I did it because it was the only thing there was to do. And now that's what I'm doing all the time. So like many people, I think I had no idea that I would end up with the sort of practice or job that I have now. I've changed firms a couple times and moved along, but kind of found my way here by accident. But I think that's a good thing. It's hard to plan everything. So that's kind of what I'm doing at a high level. Happy to answer questions or take detours on other subjects if any of you got questions or thoughts for discussion.
I have a question. So you mentioned how you're constantly on call and like you're very stressed. How do you deal with that stress?
Yeah, so one thing that I try to do, I'm still trying to figure that out. If we go on vacation now, I try not to look at my like work email. And so I try to detach from it if I absolutely can. Same thing when I'm at home, if I can, I try to like turn off the work stuff when I think I can get away with it, so I can just completely separate myself from the work from the home. And I think that's a big help. And so I had a few busy years over the past few years while we were growing our group, and we've hired a few people over the past couple of years. And this is the first year where I've reliably had weekends where I could just kind of not think about work for a day or two. And that I think is a huge thing, because I at least can kind of deal with work, say Monday to Friday, or maybe Sunday night to Friday afternoon, if I can have Saturday and Sunday just to think about home, family, and the stuff that I really like to do. So there are different ways to handle that. I think the other big stress mitigant is like exercise. I haven't left the house for like the past week. I've only gone on very short walks, and I think it messes with your brain. So a good stress mechanism, and I tell my daughters this too, is try to get out of the house and move yourself.
Okay, thank you.
I'm curious, of the people on the Zoom, Do any of you have any idea what you might want to do? Or ideas? Or hope, maybe hopes?
I'm not sure, personally, because my parents are both doctors, but I'm not necessarily interested into that field. And so that's kind of
Yeah.
in some ways how this club was created, because we don't know, and we want to find out, and we want to
Yeah.
explore our options as, the world evolves and changes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I mean, like many important decisions in life, it's like super hard to know if you're going to enjoy something until you're there doing it. I think college is kind of the same way. It's hard to pick where you want to go to college until you're there, and then you kind of know. But of course, by then it's too late. So I think what you guys are doing is pretty great. Um, whatever you can do to get a sense of the alternatives out there is, I mean, I think super helpful.
Well, thank
And
you very much.
yeah, yeah, my pleasure. I'll say this, like, if down the road any of you decide you might want to think about the law, please do feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to talk about it. I think you'll find a number of, I mean, there are other people you can reach out to too, but I'd certainly be happy to do that.